Darla's gone, I told him, finding him with his mistress. He smiled. Easier divorce now, I left. He's lost everything serves him right. My daughter is gone. Can you believe it? The bewildered expression on Neville's face as he gazed at me in the doorway is a memory I'll never forget. It was like he couldn't wrap his head around the abrupt information that his little girl had died. Are you serious? Cut it out with these insensitive jokes. That is absolutely not amusing. How could he insult me while I'm standing here? They're completely drenched from the downpour. This is the truth. How could you say that? I will take care of all the funeral plans. I'll be gone from the house for a bit. Farewell. When Neville saw my body shaking, he finally seemed to understand how serious this was, and he shouted, "That can't be true." But his reaction seemed distant, like he was unaffected, and it just got under my skin. Turning around to leave, rage surged up from inside me. I will never, ever forgive him. I'm going to make him suffer immensely. I'm Rochelle. I'm 38, and I work at an advertising agency. My family includes my husband Neville and our 8-year-old daughter, Darla. Although we weren't rich, we had a pretty good life. You see, my job at the advertising company was lucrative, and compared to my friends with office jobs, I made a pretty great income. I didn't have to stress over finances and could even put away money for Darla's future schooling. Even with all the bills and the mortgage payments, we always had some extra money left each month. Neville was aware of how much I was making, and I felt like it might have bruised his ego since he'd left his steady corporate gig a year earlier to try his hand as a self-employed web developer. He claimed his corporate earnings had plateaued, but I wasn't convinced about how much money he could really pull in as a freelancer. Naturally, I wasn't thrilled when he decided to leave his job at the company. I thought it would be a secure move to stay put at the firm and get all those retirement perks instead of taking a chance on freelancing. Still, Neville was set on being a freelancer, and ultimately he did what he wanted. After becoming a freelancer, Neville was working from our house all day, every day. It's possible that his complaints about his salary were simply a smokescreen, and he just couldn't stand navigating the tricky office dynamics anymore. Regardless, our changed life began with Neville staying home while I went to the office. Initially, Darla seemed pleased that her dad was around all the time when she got home from school, but recently she'd been looking unhappy. Although she didn't say it out loud, she probably felt like she was being observed constantly. Even at the tender age of 8, she was pretty grown-up compared to her peers. Life was going along without any significant issues, but I missed the signs of things starting to break down from the moment Neville began working remotely. When Neville started working from the house, I asked if he could lend a hand with the chores around the house, even just a little bit. I was hoping you could lend a hand with some cleaning and laundry, whatever you could handle. As always, I'll still be preparing the meals. Why is it always me who has to deal with the chores? You're home more often and you have a less rigid schedule compared to mine. Sure, it's okay if you're exhausted, just do what you can, it's flexible. Look, just because I work independently doesn't mean I have unlimited free time. Actually, there's a lot that's tough about it. How can I possibly take on all that as well? That was quite the reaction. Neville flat out rejected my tentative request. It's true, I did comprehend what he meant about freelancers being busy. I understood it's less stable and puts more strain on your mental state than being a company employee. That's precisely why I used to have an employee. He was the one who proposed his change. However, housework isn't just one person's responsibility, especially because we've both been employed until now, even though I did all the housework. I really believed he could at least light my load a little bit. I'm busy, too. Shouldn't we divide these tasks evenly? You've been managing just fine on your own up until now, haven't you? So don't start complaining now. Neville was sure he was correct and wouldn't even listen. In the long run, I just kept doing all the chores the same as before. Although I didn't think my husband wasn't occupied with his work-from-home arrangement, whenever I came home late, Neville was always either slumped in front of the television or completely focused on his cell phone. I couldn't help the rage that would bubble up inside me when he would look down at me, casually asking if dinner was ready like it was my sole responsibility. On top of that, working remotely seemed to make him hyper-aware of the house's imperfections, and he began constantly commanding me to clean more meticulously. If it bothered him so intensely, I couldn't figure out why he didn't just take care of it himself. I'm human too, and I'm not perfect, just like everyone else. I also make mistakes occasionally. Are you talking back to me? Clean up after yourself. Considering it was our family home, I wasn't the only one who dirtied the place. Despite that, Neville just kept throwing out these ridiculous arguments, and I felt completely worn out. In the meantime, Darla was silently listening to our arguments from a distance. Hey, Mom, Dad's always got his face in his phone. I wanted us to all do things together on the weekends, but Dad always vetoed the idea, using his phone as his excuse. One Sunday morning, Darla came to me as I was busy making breakfast, and she had something to tell me. Seemingly the prior night when Darla had asked Neville to go out with them, he had declined while preoccupied with his device. He had refused, engrossed with his phone. Is that so? But you're right, your dad is always looking at his phone. He's been on it from the moment you get home from school. Sometimes he also makes phone calls. Phone calls. Yes, he's talking really friendly with somebody. I can always hear a woman's voice. From how Darla described the phone calls, it really didn't sound like Neville was dealing with anything work-related. Although it wasn't out of the question that he was chatting with coworkers, I was curious about who would need to call a freelancer so often. Because I wasn't really knowledgeable about that kind of career, possibly he was giving bits of his job to other people, yet something about Darla's comment, a female voice, unsettled me. Was it feasible that he could be cheating? It wasn't out of the question. My spouse had only recently begun working from home, a few short months prior, and he absolutely had much more flexibility in his schedule than before when he had a company job. I worked very hard to hide my anxiety from Darla while I was finishing up breakfast. A number of more months went by, a year having passed since Neville began freelancing. He still refused to assist with any chores around the house. Furthermore, he had started being gone from home for whole weekends at a time. He would depart claiming that freelancers don't get days off. I have to work. But during those particular times he'd usually dress up more than normal and would even wear jewelry and cologne he never usually wore. Even though I was doubtful, I just accepted that, even if I made a huge fuss about infidelity now, he would probably just sweet-talk his way out of the situation since there was no real proof. And besides, even if Neville was having an affair, what am I supposed to do about it? While I understood rationally that we should separate, the thought of Darla made it impossible to bring myself to do that. I stressed myself out daily over whether or not I had the strength to remove a father figure from Darla's life. That's how our days were, until a crucial point eventually came. This Monday, I was getting ready for my typical workday, but Darla was still asleep, and I was concerned she'd be late for school. I said, "Darla, it's morning already," figuring she'd be tardy if she didn't get up quickly. I went into Darla's bedroom to rouse her, and I realized she seemed very weak. I immediately went over and touched her forehead. "You're burning up, Darla. You've got a fever." I grabbed a thermometer and stuck it under her arm. It showed she had a pretty high fever. What am I supposed to do? I thought. I have an important meeting today and can't just ditch work. While I was stressed and agitated, Neville came over. "What's going on?" he inquired. "Darla has a really bad fever and I can't miss work today." "Maybe we should reach out for some assistance," I suggested. Assistance. He said there was no need for that he would watch her instead. All she needed was a peaceful time to recuperate, right? I could at least whip up some porridge for her. "It'll be fine," he said. I was genuinely surprised that Neville offered to look after Darla, especially since she had a fever. This was the same Neville who had left all the chores and child care to me and never got involved. I couldn't fathom him taking care of our ailing daughter, but there wasn't time to argue, so I chose to trust him and let it go. "Okay, I'll leave her to you," I added. "There's fruit in the fridge, too. You can slice some up for her if she feels like she wants to eat." "Understood," he responded. Getting a reassuring response from Neville, I quickly finished getting ready and rushed out of the house. Although I was desperately concerned about Darla, getting to work on time was what I had to focus on. I boarded the train, and as the train pulled into the station closest to my office, the day had become overcast and it had started raining, but I made it to work nonetheless. The meeting began that afternoon at the time it was supposed to, but I couldn't stop thinking about Darla. Then everyone became uneasy when they heard the loud rain and powerful gusts of wind that were hitting the building from the outside. Now that I think about it, didn't the news say there was a typhoon coming? I hadn't taken the time to check the weather forecast lately, given how hectic things had been, but I remembered the typhoon reports, and this morning they had said the typhoon could hit land tonight. Even throughout the meeting, everyone, including myself, appeared to be distracted by the typhoon's impact and kept looking out the window. At 7 in the evening, when I finally left work and began the trip home, the rain was even harder and a bunch of trains weren't running. The train I was intending to get on was running considerably late, and the platform was jam-packed with people. I was anxious about Darla's high fever. I couldn't stay at the platform any longer. I quickly exited through the turnstiles to try to find a taxi. There were many other people trying to get a taxi, too, so I had to wait quite a bit, but after half an hour I managed to get one. 30 minutes later, after driving home, I got out of the taxi right in front of my house and was shocked by what I saw. Darla. There was Darla, lying down in front of the door. Scooped up my daughter, who was completely soaked. "Darla, honey, are you all right? What's going on?" "Dad," she said. It seemed like she was so happy to see me. Darla went completely lifeless from being so worn out. The fever was still pretty high. Even though she was soaked from the downpour, her body felt so hot. I walked back toward the taxi I had just gotten out of and tapped on the window to get the driver's attention. "Sir, excuse me, I need another ride. Could you please take us to the hospital?" I think the driver could tell by how worried I was and how Darla was just lifeless in my arms. The driver must have known it was an emergency and opened the door, telling me to get in. I quickly jumped back into the taxi. I told him to take us to the nearest hospital. "Darla," I whispered. While we were in the taxi, I kept saying Darla's name repeatedly. I felt like I just had to, or something horrible would happen to her. I really wanted to know why Darla had been lying down in front of the entrance, but saving her life was the most important thing at the moment. The taxi was moving really slowly because of the storm, but we eventually made it to the hospital. "Ma'am, be careful when you go back. It's probably going to be just as bad," the thoughtful driver said as he watched us get out, and then I carried Darla into the hospital. Even though there were a lot of patients there, the receptionist understood that Darla was in an emergency and got us to see a doctor right away. The doctor checked Darla and told me that she was out of it from a high fever. There weren't any visible injuries, so she should be okay once the fever subsided. However, given that she had likely been exposed to the elements for several hours, drenched in the rain and battling a soaring temperature, Darla required immediate hospitalization. "I'm so heartbroken, Darla. I hope you feel better soon, my dear. Don't worry about anything, we'll handle it all, so please just relax and try to get some rest today, ma'am. Thanks." After spending 5 hours at the hospital observing Darla's face, which was sleeping and also in pain, a nurse approached me to talk. Despite my strong desire to remain with Darla, the nurse was correct. I had come home drained after work, and then this crisis with Darla unfolded, leaving me completely worn out in both body and mind. I had to leave this to the medical staff and head home for the time being. This was undoubtedly Neville's doing. The evidence was that Darla had muttered, "Dad," right before she passed out. There was no way Darla would have gone outside by herself with such a high fever, especially not during a tropical storm. The more I considered the situation, the more I found myself unable to comprehend or excuse Neville's actions. As I walked towards home, I was considering what words to use when I spoke with Neville. If he learned that Darla was safe, he might get arrogant and pull a stunt like this again. I had to stop that from ever happening again. Neville needed to understand the weight of this situation more than anything, so having reached a firm conclusion, I went back to my place. When I arrived home, getting rained on, Neville was casually absorbed in his phone. When he noticed my arrival, he glanced up abruptly and stared at me. "Hey, what happened to Darla? She was asleep at the front door, wasn't she? She said she was going out to play." I made an effort to stop her, but it was no use. I was unable to control my fury over Neville's offhand comment. Darla went out the door by herself. After he was the one who kicked her out, I squeezed my hands into fists and spoke. "She's gone." "What?" The shocked expression on his face when he looked at me standing there is burned into my memory. It seemed he couldn't comprehend that his daughter had died. "What in the world are you even saying? Cut it out with these awful jokes." That's not amusing in the slightest. How could he make fun of me when I was standing there completely drenched from the rain? This is the truth. How could you? I'm going to take care of all the funeral details. I'm going to be gone from the house for a time. Farewell. Looking at my shaking form, Neville at last appeared to understand the seriousness of it all and shouted, "Impossible." But his response seemed distant, like he didn't care, and that really got to me. As I turned around, rage erupted from deep inside me. I'll never be able to forgive him for this. I'm going to make him pay. I walked away from the house and went directly to a hotel. Luckily, they had some rooms available, and I decided to get one and stay for a bit. The cost would be difficult, but this wasn't the time to think about money. I wanted to get back at Neville for this. If he somehow showed real regret and changed, maybe I could rethink what I planned to do. However, based on Neville's lack of immediate calls or texts, it was plain to see how he felt. He was indifferent about Darla's situation. This heightened my fury, and I seriously started planning how to make Neville understand. The following morning, the instant I opened my eyes, I went directly to the hospital. They had reached out to me, letting me know Darla had woken up. "Darla, are you all right? I'm fine now. My fever has subsided." "Oh, thank heavens." I embraced Darla and gently ran my hand through her hair. Darla laughed, finding it amusing. After a bit, I prompted Darla to tell me about what occurred. "Darla, what exactly happened yesterday? Dad threw me out. He said, 'You're a bother, leave.' Then a woman arrived, and they were cheerfully talking. A woman, what was she like? I didn't get a good look, but she was young. She had vivid red nail polish and was wearing slender high heels. What a mess." So Neville was actually having an affair. Not only that, but he'd brought his lover over on the day his daughter was very sick, and even worse, he kicked his daughter out. It was absolutely shocking. I couldn't comprehend how anyone could act so cruelly, so that's what happened. "I'm so sorry, Darla, you must have been terrified." "Yeah, but I was glad you rescued me, Mom." I can never forgive him for the pain he inflicted on Darla and his attempt to find happiness with this other woman. My entire body trembled with rage boiling up from within me. I just remembered my dad mentioned inviting that woman over again this coming Sunday. Next Sunday, that's the same day I'm scheduled for the company trip. He was planning on having a nice day with his affair partner while I was gone. I was completely repulsed, but this reinforced my determination. That's some helpful information. While gently petting Darla, I quietly promised myself to make Neville pay dearly for his actions. That Sunday, I made up my mind to come back home with Darla. I called my workplace and told them I wouldn't be able to go on the trip, citing important family issues. Darla had been staying with me at the hotel since she was released. Even though it had been a while since we'd been back, the entrance felt foreign when we arrived. "We're home," Darla and I announced as we walked inside, and predictably, there was an unfamiliar pair of high heels in the foyer. Just like Darla said, the idea of Neville and his girlfriend having a good time in the back room made my flesh crawl. Neville wasn't in the living room, so I started walking toward the bedroom. Then I heard Neville speaking from inside. Things worked out. It really did. Now that Darla is gone, the divorce will be simpler, too. How can you talk that way about your own daughter? But you're right, it was good fortune for me. I felt lightheaded listening to them consider Darla's death a convenient, lucky situation. Now I understood everything. Neville showed zero signs of regret. All right, I thought, I'm just going to have to go face him directly. Excuse me. Wow, are we having unexpected guests? Their jaws dropped and their eyes grew bigger when they saw Darla and me standing in the entrance. What are you two doing here? You told me you were on a company outing today. And why is Darla with you? What's going on here? Didn't you say your daughter was gone? Naturally, they'd be freaked out to see Darla when they thought she was no longer with us. I elaborated on what happened step by step. That whole death thing, a complete fabrication. I'm so sorry. I wanted to observe your reaction. I expected you to feel some guilt, but instead you seemed pleased. That's not something that a decent person would do. A deception, I knew it. You were such a no-good liar. Give me back all the wasted time I spent worrying. I let out a big breath, realizing Neville's worry was clearly a lie. Don't be absurd. You're the one who tossed Darla out of the house, right? That's not how it happened. Darla was just, Daddy kicked me out. He said I was getting in the way because he wanted to be with that other woman. As soon as Darla told the real story, Neville's face went white. You did something utterly awful, both as a father and as a person. Even though she's okay now, she could have actually died. You wanted to be with that other woman so much that you would do this to Darla. I gestured toward the woman who had been starring at our fight without saying a word, standing next to Neville, and I yelled, don't try to make it sound so innocent. She's just someone from work. But honey, didn't you quit your job and become a freelancer? Neville's clumsy attempt to conceal things with a flimsy lie actually showed the woman was his lover. I guess I didn't really need to get into that with you either way. Here's proof of your infidelity. Aren't private detectives incredible? They found all of this in just 7 days. I shoved a big envelope towards Neville. After Darla told me about Neville's cheating, I had initiated a complete investigation. I never anticipated the proof appearing so fast, though. Neville wasn't very good at hiding what he'd done. Nervously, Neville opened the envelope, pulled out the stuff inside, and dropped the pile of damning pictures on the ground. This isn't right. How does it feel to push someone into a situation like this? Do you actually get enjoyment out of doing this to others? I couldn't comprehend Neville's mindset at all. He was trying to make me the bad guy, even though the situation was entirely his fault, with him being the one who was cornered and under fire. I took the divorce papers I had in my bag and shoved them toward Neville. Unfair. Who's really being unfair here? Staying with a person who can't even distinguish between right and wrong seems pointless to me. Let's get a divorce. Neville's eyes widened when he looked at the divorce papers. If he preferred to be with his mistress from the beginning, he should just accept the divorce papers without making a scene. And naturally, after we separate, you'll be paying alimony and child support. Plus, you'll also be paying damages. Be ready. I turned my attention to his mistress. What, me? I didn't have any knowledge of this. You're clueless. You wrecked our family, so you've got to own up to that. But the problem is I don't have any cash. The woman was running her hands through her hair like she was panicking. Darla and I just stared at her without any warmth in our eyes. Even though Darla was still little, it seemed like she grasped the concept of damages to some degree, and she held my hand really tight. If you don't have any funds, then go get a loan or whatever you must do. You two are in love, aren't you? Surely you can deal with this much stress together. Don't ever let me or Darla see your faces again. You can keep the house. I hope you have good luck with those mortgage payments. Hey, hold on a sec. Even though Neville yelled for us to wait, I didn't pay any attention to him and dragged Darla with me. Even though this little girl was going to lose her dad, I felt zero regrets. I was never, ever going to let Darla be in a dangerous situation like that again. Darla, from this moment on, let's do our best together. Yeah, Darla smiled more joyfully than I anticipated, which helped me to relax. I brought Darla over to my parents' place and we lived there for a bit. My parents were really angry about Neville's cheating and how awful he was to Darla. It seemed like they were about to march over there and deck him. I managed to calm them down, so we avoided a bad scene. You can stay here for as long as you want. Both Mom and Dad were very friendly and warm, and Darla was thrilled to be spending time with her favorite grandparents. I felt really glad that things seemed all right, for the time being. In the meantime, I had my lawyer file a request for alimony and child support from Neville, and thankfully, he paid it all in one go. I also made sure to extract adequate compensation from his girlfriend. Given that Neville likely didn't have a vast amount of cash readily available, it's probable he had to borrow money. Plus, he was still saddled with paying off the rest of the mortgage. As a result, Neville's finances are probably in a terrible state. Someone I worked with at my firm had gone to school with Neville, and they shared some updates about what Neville had been up to lately. As it turned out, following everything that happened, he and his girlfriend had actually split up. It appears Neville had boasted to his girlfriend that he was wealthy, and when she discovered that wasn't the case, she said, "This isn't what you told me," and immediately ended their relationship. Honestly, it couldn't be avoided, since Neville's earnings were half what they had been when he worked at his company. Now, he was scrambling to juggle a variety of part-time jobs in addition to his freelance work. Having lost his wife, his daughter, and even his mistress, Neville would spend the remainder of his life battling to clear his debts. He brought it all upon himself. I truly hope he suffers and feels remorse for his actions. Mom, I made gifts for Grandma and Grandpa today at school. Oh, did you? Well, we should present them to them later together. All right. Watching Darla so happy, even without Neville's presence, brought a smile to my face. From this day on, I'm determined to keep progressing at my own speed, alongside Darla.